the air blocking is it the most interesting thing to watch? No, probably not. But at the end of the day, you got to respect the skill it takes, right, Bob? I mean, ultimately, we got to find something to pick out of this race that it wasn't. It was like the unconventional pretty girl at the bar. You're doing your best to sell yourself, but you never really know if you're going to go for it or not.
Well, Kyle Busch said earlier in the week, he said the next gen car, which he has had a long-standing, I guess you could say, feud with. He's never minced his words with the next gen car. But Kyle Busch came out earlier this week and said, the next gen car is a defensive driving car. You can't play offense in it. You can't attack and go for positions. You hold your position, you defend it. And again, today, Denny Hamlin, he wins 3 straight restarts against Kyle Larson to get that positioning, goes out in front, and then mirror drives Kyle Larson. 35 laps of it, basically, there. I mean, you can say what you want. You get to about 0.2 of a second off the leader. You get to that dirty air. You can't get close to him. As long as you can mirror drive someone, Ross Chastain's been notorious for it with this next-gen car. You've seen his performance go up insane the last few years. This is a car that fits his style. You can kind of just do enough to just keep the guy behind you. He can get close to you, and you saw Kyle Larson charge close at the end there, Ad, but I think that you watch this race, and yeah, you can be upset and say, oh, they can't pass. Life's too short. You just got to make of it what you will. I saw today 2 guys at the highest level there driving with basically no margin for error. I mean, it got to the point where, like I said, Kyle Larson's 0.2 off of Denny Hamlin's bumper. Hamlin is basically just going up, reading each other. You saw Larson do this with Tyler Reddick earlier in the year at Vegas, where they were just mirror driving each other, picking each other's lines back and forth. Is it the most exciting racing? Yeah, no, they're not side by side, but there's a place for it in the sport. With a next-gen car, no, you might as well get used to it.
You're 100% right, and that's exactly what I was going to say, is like, look, if you don't like this, I'm sorry, because you're going to see more of it. It's kind of like, sometimes people will watch basketball and get mad about the zone defense and say, oh, it's gimmicky, it's this, it's that. At the end of the day, if something's effective, it's going to continue. And the air blocking, it seems like for the drivers who, the Denny Hamlins and Kyle Larsons of the world, guys who you really see do this well in this next-gen car, and, Ross Chastain, of course, like you said, you're just going to see more of this. But it sucks because kind of like watching, I'll stick with the basketball analogy, it's kind of like watching somebody set really good hard screens. Does it do anything on the stat sheet? No. Is it interesting to watch? Maybe, depending on if you're into that sort of thing, but
I would even give you, I would even make it a little grittier for your sake here. I would say it's the guy taking a charge.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. I mean, first guy in, last guy out mentality. Really, just
it is Aaron Kraft at Ohio State out there, just sitting at the top of the key, just waiting to get bodied. He's going to take that charge, and the team's going to go down and take the possession away. It's a little slimy. It's like when you sit at the top of the circle at 2K and just wait for the guy to run into you because he's not paying attention. It's kind of cheap, but it works.
Exactly. At the end of the day, if it's effective, it is going to keep happening. And I think there's 2 ways to look at this. We can get mad that, that Denny is able to, air block Kyle Larson like that for 35 laps at the end of the race, or we can just sit back and be massively impressed by the fact that Denny Hamlin was able to air block Kyle Larson for the better part of 35 laps, which I don't know about you, Bob, but I think that's a hell of an achievement. That's one of the best race car drivers in the world that you're keeping behind you. And, hats off to Denny Hamlin. At the end of the day, you just got to tip your cap every now and again.
100%. And you even heard Kyle Larson in his post-race interview. He alluded to the fact that he did the same thing to Tyler Reddick in Las Vegas, but then he kind of does those backhanded compliments saying, it's easy to block Aero in this next-gen car. You sit out in front as the leader and you're set there. Kyle Larson ultimately, with 35 to go when Denny Hamlin took the lead over, had 3 straight restarts where Denny Hamlin beat him. Heads up. They were on this front row together. Larson originally was the lead car. Hamlin beat him. A caution comes out after Larson's pit crew had gotten him ahead. Hamlin takes the lead car spot on the top line, and then 2 straight restarts beats Larson clear up. I mean, Kyle Larson could sit there and say the air blocking is what lost him the race here. Really, it was those restarts there. And yeah, Kyle Larson spun the tires. Martin Truex Jr. got into the back of him a little bit on one of those restarts there. But 3 straight restarts for Denny Hamlin against Kyle Larson there. That was what was ultimately the difference in the race to me. Again, the air blocking is what carries Hamlin to the win, but the positioning on the track was because of those restarts. And like we've been saying, now this is 11 races in, it's all about track position, clean air. And Hamlin was the one that fought for that clean air. Kyle Larson was the one that was fighting to get anything there, when ultimately it was those restarts that really did him in my opinion.
Yeah, it felt like the only thing that Kyle Larson could blame that didn't have just a really sound explanation for why it was happening was the aero blocking. Because, like you said, it's really hard to look in the mirror and say, okay, I messed up 3 restarts. I spun the tires, whatever the circumstances may be. I just think it's a lot easier, especially when you're frustrated after the race like that, for Kyle Larson to just be like, that was kind of BS. Da 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 da. I think everybody who's taken a loss can kind of relate to that, just kind of that sour feeling to where you're looking to blame just about anything at that point. So, I think part of it is, like you said, the backhanded, that's just kind of Kyle Larson after a loss is just kind of a little bit backhanded, a little bit butthurt. But ultimately, I think he understands, this is just how racing looks in the next gen era. I think you and I kind of sit on the side to where it's maybe not our favorite thing in the world, but I certainly see it has a place in the sport. Kind of like, our gritty guys getting in the gym at 5 a.m. taking charges.